Hello, Internet, and welcome to an episode of Demajen Unscripted. Demajen Unscripted is the series where I talk about something for X amount of time in an unscripted manner. Thus the name. I know, clever, eh? Today I'm going to talk about Metroid Dread. I've just finished editing together all of my footage of Dread, all 14 or 15 hours of it, cut down ever so slightly because there was a big chunk at the end of episode 12, which was just me trying to do Shine Spark puzzles really badly. So I've lopped that off. And I said in that episode that I wanted to take some time to think about my opinions of the game. It's now Saturday, it's the 16th of, I was going to say February then for some reason, I have no idea why, 16th of October. So I've had basically a week to really kind of put my thoughts together on the game and whether I think it is a worthy game in this a worthy entry in what is essentially my favorite video game franchise. Not Final Fantasy, as some of you might think from, what my channel is generally covering, but no, Metroid is my favorite franchise. Final Fantasy is a close second. And of course, for me, does Metroid Dread surpass what I considered to be the best game in the series previously, Metroid Fusion? Not Super Metroid. I know that's not so much a controversial opinion, but it is an opinion that a lot of people are going to have thoughts on. I thought, because I'm a story-focused individual, yes, exploration, of course, big Metroidvania fan, as you no doubt know from the 24, 25 different maps I've made for Metroidvania games over the years. But story first. I'm an English teacher. I'm a writer, professional writer. Of course, world building and story is going to come first for me. And I'll talk about world building in a bit. But Metroid Fusion, although it was handholdy, don't get me wrong, super appreciate that, not to everybody's taste at all, I preferred it to Super Metroid. And also I feel like it controls better than Super Metroid. So, what can I say about Metroid Dread? It is now my favourite game in the Metroid franchise. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and I'm going to talk you through them, because whilst this isn't a scripted episode, I do have some notes. Why do you have notes, Dema? Because I spent 25 minutes, about half an hour ago, recording the first version of this video, and I waffled and discovered as I was editing it together that I'd actually repeated some of my points 3 times, which isn't good listening. And I'd also missed some things off that I wanted to talk about. So we're doing it again. In the background, there is some footage of me on my... I think this was my thumbnail playthrough. I realised as I was making the thumbnails for the videos that in my first impressions and my first playthrough that I wanted various screenshots of things, and of course because I did my walkthrough with me on it, I was in the way for all of the bits that I wanted to capture. So that's what this is. I'd also seen at this point somebody actually blow this up from this side and miss out the first Emmy entirely. Couldn't figure out how to do it, but I thought I'd give it a try. So, what are we going to look at in this video? We're going to look at graphic design. So we're going to take a look at the game's looks. We're going to take a look at sound and music, my thoughts on those. We're going to take a look at the abilities and upgrades, the exploration and the map. We're going to take a look at the areas and atmosphere created by moving around the map. We're going to take a look at the ending and my thoughts on the story as a whole. And then we're going to sum up with my impressions of the game's value and a little bit of a chat about the special edition, because of course that's what I paid for, because of course I did. So let's start off with graphic design. The first thing that you need to be aware of, and I said it several times during my playthrough, is that I wish this was on other systems as well as the Switch. I know that's never going to happen. Well, I can't say it's never going to happen, because obviously the game is already on emulators running at 4K 60 FPS. I wish Nintendo had released the game on things capable of playing it at 4K 60 FPS, because the game already looks good, but how good could it look running at 4K solid 60 FPS with proper anti-aliasing and so on and so forth, with anisotropic filtering, with ray tracing? You know, I mean, the game's already so well done when it comes to lighting. I said several times, in fact, in scenes like this, perfect timing. The lights on her shoulders and ankles and chest and visor, how they glow in the darkened areas, is so well done and really adds to that sense of a whole. How good would that be with ray tracing in 4K? So yeah, graphic design, I think, considering it's on the Nintendo Switch, which is an old piece of hardware now, running at 900p, I think it is, or 720p if you are playing handheld mode, I think it does an absolutely superlative job of levering as much horsepower as it can out of the Switch system. These areas with the film grain and the color grading really add a sense of threat to the situation. When you go to the colder areas and you've got the particles and things thrown through there, even things like the mist flowing here off these platforms just really gives the graphics of the game a really nice whole feeling. But I'm gonna veer too much into kind of area and atmosphere design if I'm not too careful here. For what it is, for the system that it is on, I think Metroid Dread does. Graphical fidelity is excellent. Do I wish it was in 4K? Yeah, but it's not. Sound design. Metroid Dread is, in my opinion, at its best when it is giving you lots of things to think about. So, for example, in these Emmy sections, when you are being chased and the car alarms are going off, that really adds to the design. The beeps, the boops, they're brilliant. One of the standout sound effects for me was the morph ball bombs, and the way they sound like they're shattering metal with tiny, powerful explosions, and the big screen wide. In fact, that's something I can add to graphics as well. When the power bomb explodes and everything gets overexposed and hyper washed out, the sound design for FX is just excellent all the way through. I don't think there was a single sound effect in the game that felt out of place or odd. All the monsters make good sounds. The parry sound effect is perfect. It's not too irritating. Even and you heard it a lot when you were trying to parry the Emmys. The music, on the other hand, is, I think, where Dread is at its weakest. I mean, literally, the music is, counting everything, I think Dread is at its weakest with its music. In comparison to classic tunes like the Brinstar theme, the Norfair theme, boom, 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 boom. Fendrana Drifts, still one of my favourite pieces of Metroid music. Do 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 do. Can't sing, but you know the piece. If you played Prime, obviously. The music in Dread is, it's not bad. It's there when it needs to be. I'm just not rushing out to buy the soundtrack, shall we say. In fact, I haven't even YouTubed the soundtrack. That is kind of the highest form of critique that I offer a game that I really like. If I'm as a former musician, I am very musically oriented. You know, I own every single soundtrack, CD, etc., for Final Fantasy XIV, for example. The music in Dread is good when it's good, and it's never bad, but it is kind of forgettable in a lot of places. I think arguably the best pieces of music are the bits in the lava zones. The worst is the kind of looping. I don't even know whether it's technically a music trap in the map room. The I think I complained about that in one of the episodes. None of it is bad, but a lot of it is just, I can't remember what the music was like in this area. I mean, yes, I've got 20 plus years of having listened to the Super Metroid music and various rock and metal remixes of the Super Metroid music and so on and so forth. Yes, of course that's going to stick with me. But the music in Dread just doesn't have that... I don't know, it just hasn't stuck with me as much. I mean, obviously, I'm going to play the game several more times, so maybe it will. Maybe I'll change my mind on this. But as it is now, yeah, the music, I would argue, is the worst part of the sound design. Let's go back to some good design choices. Not that the sound design is bad, it's just kind of forgettable. Abilities, exploration, and map. I actually said during my playthrough a couple of times that I was really surprised as to the order of ability acquisition. The fact that we got the morph ball and bombs later in the game than I was expecting is an interesting choice. The fact that we got the plasma beam before the gravity suit is an interesting choice. The fact that there were so many power bomb upgrades that we could get, power bomb resources that we could get before we got the actual power bombs themselves was an interesting choice. And I really liked it because it was quite entertaining to find yet another power bomb expansion without having the power bombs. It's like, oh, another one. I wonder what these are going to be. The abilities that we did get were really well paced. Sometimes they were clumped together, like when we got the ice missiles and the pulse radar and the spin jump. Not the spin jump, what was it called? Can't remember. Spin boost. Got them written down there because I was using them in video descriptions. In fact, the addition of the spin boost, I think, is something worth talking about. It's a new ability, realistically, for a Metroid game. I mean, yes, we've had the space jump for a long time. It was in the first one, wasn't it? Yeah, well, it was certainly a Zero mission. Space jump, screw attack, grapple beam was much better done in this than it was in Super Metroid, though that's not hard, to be honest. The version of pulse radar in this compared to the version in Samus Returns, the previous 2.5D game in the series, the remake of Metroid 2, works much better, in my opinion. I don't think there is a single ability in this game that I'm like, oh no, that's terrible, I wish that wasn't there. And even if there were, I could just say, well, I'm not going to use it. I know a lot of people were concerned about the kind of melee counter and how prevalent that was going to be. But I thought it really added to the fluidity of Samus's movement. I have no idea what I'm trying to do there. This is all pre-recorded footage, obviously. The dash melee, like that, again, I thought was really nice. Did I use it as much as I should have done? No, I definitely did not. I tried to use it more in this playthrough. So the abilities were solid Metroid choices. You know, you got everything that you expected to get in a Metroid game. Plus a couple of new things, like the cross bomb, like the thunder missiles, like the spin boost. You got them in a different order to maybe what you were expecting, but that's kind of cool, because if you've played all of the Metroid games before, being thrown for a loop like that, it's like, why do we not have the Morph Ball yet? I know we've got this slide. Oh, the Spider Magnet. Completely forgot to mention. Although technically Spider abilities aren't new to the series. I just think realistically that the abilities were super well chosen. And they were used really well and integrated really well into puzzles. And some of them I had to think about, especially, oh my god, the Shine Spark puzzles. My 100% game file is at 18 hours. My actual playthrough of the game, my playtime of the game was 8 hours 30 odd minutes. Was it 8 hours 21, something like that? So I spent about 10 hours total. No, not just doing the Shine Spark puzzles. There was a lot of other stuff that I've done on that file, like completely uncovering every square in the map and so on and so forth. What am I doing here? I feel like I'm trying to get past the Emmy and I'm failing miserably at figuring out where to go. Idiot. This is after I put the map together as well. But yeah, the abilities really add to the exploration in the game, and the exploration and finding of things is really nicely done. It's a big map. It's a huge map. I think it's probably the biggest Metroid 2D map. There's Experiment What's His Face in the background. Yeah, it's a huge game world, and yet it is, for the most part, really easy to get round by the end of the game when you've got the speed booster, when you've got the screw attack and the space jump. I think this room, a certain notable game developer had an issue with, because they said that the blocks in the ceiling there weren't telegraphed enough. It's like, well, how are you supposed to get to those two enemies, sir? Let's not go into that, because I thought that was horrendously terrible, especially to say a game is shit when you miss something so obvious, something that was in the tutorial, for Christ's sake. That's not shit design, that's just you being a shit player, frankly. Anyway, the map itself, the actual in-game map, is very good. It has got everything that you could possibly need on it, and because it is vector based, the developers can actually change the shape of the map in game. The section where the area gets really hot and things start collapsing, I didn't really notice it at the time because I was too busy focused on not burning to death, but the shapes of the map shift, and when there are the blocks that you can push around and the kind of fulcrum things that kind of tilt and shift, or the bits where you can use the spider magnet to pull things down, it all dynamically shifts on the map, and I just actually didn't notice any of it at the time. I only noticed it when I came to put the map together, and I was looking through some footage and it's like, hold on, the game looks different to what the kind of map at the end of the game looks like. And then of course things started shifting. I was like, oh, because I'd realized that it was vector based, but I hadn't realized so much of the game was shifting around you as you played, and that's just really cool. As is the fact that it marks everything on for you as you go, and has those flashing areas to show you that, yeah, you missed something here. I do wish I'd used the map marker system more, but to be honest, I always feel like I should use the map marker system more in any Metroid game or Metroidvania game. So that's on me. That's not on the game designers. So, what do map markers do? Map markers help us get around areas. So let's talk about areas and atmosphere. You can actually pull that platform down there. Don't know why I didn't. Let's start off with the Emmy areas. The film grain effect, the hyper-saturated colouring really, I think, adds to that kind of claustrophobic sense of danger, sense of dread that the Emmy sections are designed to evoke. And I think it's a great stylistic choice. But all of the other areas in the game as well are super atmospheric. They're maybe not as one note as, for example, the different biomes in Fusion are. But that's not really surprising, because the biomes in Fusion are literally designed to be like that. You've got Pyre, your hot zone. You've got Noct, your dark zone. You've got Arc, your Arctic zone. That's the actual point of them. These are a little bit more, well, you're on a planet that is a Chozo stronghold, and some of the outlying areas are completely deserted and falling into ruin. And you've got your citadel in the middle, which is a little bit nicer, but has clearly been overtaken by the X, and so on and so forth. In terms of actually looking at the areas in the game, the different zones in the game, I think they're all quite distinctive, but not one note. You know, you've got Berenia, which is your kind of watery but also slightly cold place. You've got Cataris, which is the fiery place where the thermal flows and all that machinery is done. The one thing, the one critique that I've got about the areas in Dreads is that their names aren't very memorable. In comparison to Norfair, Brinstar, Turian, and so on and so forth. The ones in Dread, even now, I've spent 10 hours or so, probably more than that, 15 hours probably, putting a map together for the place. The names aren't super memorable. You know, you've got Cataris, you've got Ellen, you've got Berenia. And so I can kind of see the other areas' names in my head, but I can't remember how to spell them, and therefore I can't remember how to pronounce them. You know, the one at the bottom, is it Octaria? It's just not memorable. Maybe if I spent 20 years with Dread, like I've done with Super Metroid, maybe that will change. But as it is, they're a little bit like the music, a little bit forgettable. Maybe could have done with something a little bit catchier or shorter, perhaps. But the atmosphere created in each area is great. I love the kind of swampy forest, and the detail in the background of all of these zones is really nice. I mean, looking at the area here, there's clearly stuff there, but a lot of it is silhouetted so as not to detract from the general environment. A lot of care has clearly been put into the readability of what is going on screen, and it has to be, especially for a game that has to run at 720p on a handheld device. You know, you've got to have that readability there, and I think Dread does that excellently. The zones are well designed, and the readability of said zones and the things that are found all throughout those zones are really done as well. They ooze atmosphere, they ooze presence, they ooze good design, and that has to be commended. So we make our way all the way through Metroid Dread, and we get to the final area, and we get drip-fed little details of story as we go. A lot of the story detail is environmental, but also we get the conversations with Adam, which are much less intrusive in this than they were in Fusion. We get loads and loads of little cutscenes as we go, just to really show us the scope and add to the atmosphere of the areas, and they're really well done. Love this bit. And they all lead up to a fight where, and this section is going to be spoilery because I'm going to talk about the ending. You probably should have figured that out, but spoiler alert if you hadn't. Skip to the timestamp on the screen now if you haven't played the game. Though while you're watching a review, a detailed review like this, and critique if you haven't played the game is, I don't know. I've still got some questions. I'm standing in a lot of acid there. I've still got some questions about the kind of ending to the game, and they all boil down to the nature of Adam throughout the game. Obviously, when Adam was first in the opening, some players, especially players that didn't like Fusion so much, or Other M, which I still haven't played, were very much, oh no, he's in it again, blah, blah, blah. But the question I have is, how much of our interactions with the navigation computer, how much of that was with Adam? Was any of it after the initial thing with Adam? Because it's not super clear. I kind of get the impression that at some point, Ravenbeak took over. But even going through, it's quite difficult to tell. Because I cannot remember whether Adam previously, because obviously the big tell for if it's Adam or not is if he, asks Samus, are there any objections, lady? That was the big reveal in the end of Fusion. And he does do that at the start, but he does also call Samus by her name at times. So the transition between Adam and Ravenbeak, don't know. But the actual ending to the game I thought was really good. It was anime. It was bombastic and cinematic, and I really liked it. I'm still not a huge fan of the actual Metroid suit that we got. I think it does look a little bit too much like the Arakir gear, the tier set for Witch Doctors in Diablo 3. Or something from, a Monster Hunter game. But it's grown on me more. And you don't spend an awful lot of time in it. It's kind of sad, actually, that you don't get to an option where you can play the entire game in it after having finished the game. Being playing like a complete idiot in this fight. But yeah, I very much enjoyed the ending. I like the fact that after 35 years of calling Samus Metroid, it's now correct. And I like the fact that it gives the developers the excuse to say, yes, we can carry on the Metroid series by calling it Metroid, despite the fact that there are no Metroids left, because Samus is the Metroid. Now, I thought that was really poetic, if I'm honest. The escape sequence was great. The questions about, was Ravenbeak actually our father in the sense that it was his DNA that was donated to us so that she could survive, so that Samus could survive. Don't know. It's very, very interesting. I think I'm actually almost out of footage here, aren't I? Oh no, I've still got another 5 minutes. So I really liked the story. It wasn't heavy-handed. I've heard some people say it's a little bit linear. Metroid games have always been linear. They've always had a linear path. All Metroidvanias have got an optimal linear path. Was this one any linear than any other Metroidvania that I've played? No. There were loads of opportunities to go off the beaten track, to explore things. By about halfway through the game, there are dozens of places that you can go back to and check out. As soon as you get the Varia suits, you could go back to the opening zone and pick up about 30 extra missiles, and I think maybe even a power bomb resource or two. So yes, there's a degree of linearity, because there always is an optimal path to go through. I can't see that critique, personally. Maybe you'd like to fill me in the comments below as to what people mean by that when they say that Dread is a linear game. Because I don't think it is. Certainly not any more than any others. So, great ending. Nice cap to the story of the Metroids and, I guess, the X. And also, of course, a nice amount of content about the Chozo, which is great. I know it's the first time we've seen a living Chozo in one of these games. And Samus speaking. Obviously, Samus speaking is not new to the series. She did a load of it in Other M, so I am told. Would anybody be interested in watching me try and play that for the channel? I'm actually quite scared to ask that because I feel like people might say yes. And I've heard so many bad things about it thanks to the motion controls. Oh yeah, going back to the graphics, the half frame rate on those fire explosions is a little bit weird, but I'm sure that's an optimization thing because they had to do it that way. That's the only slightly iffy graphical thing. Some of the explosions and background elements move at half frame rate. Value for money then. Do I think that I've got my value for money out of this game? Yeah. I mean, I got the collector's box. And in the collector's box, you get the game, you get the steel box, you get the Metroid mission logs. This is fabulous. When I saw the box, I was thinking it was going to be much smaller, but this is a full-on A4, full color. It's got like, how many pages has it got? A couple of hundred? Yeah, a couple of hundred pages. Half the book is for Dread itself. The other half is for the other games in the series. Absolute cracking book. If you are interested in concept art, game design, any of that kind of stuff, world building, it is top notch. I really, I've looked through it a couple of times now, and there's just some really interesting designs and stuff in there, including other potential designs for Samus's suit in this particular game, including chunky power suit, which looks really, really cool. I might see if I can find a picture of it on the internet. Or I could scan it in, I suppose. So, for me, is Samus Returns. Is Metroid Dread good value for money? Yes. Yes, it is. Is it a long game? No. Are any Metroid games long games? No. Is it worth $60 or your regional equivalents? Well, that depends very much on you. And depends on how much disposable income you have. It is not a 4K open world PS5 game at all. But for me, it's definitely worth the money as far as I'm concerned, because I know that I'm going to get multiple plays through of it. It's on the Switch, so I can take it on the bus or whatever. It's fab. Absolute fab. There we go. Let's loop the video because I've only got X number of minutes worth of footage. So overall thoughts then. I think I've said everything that I want to say about Dread. It is a game that is so good to control, so fluid, so superlative in its attention to animation and details and the feel of moving Samus around, that it is something that I just know that I'm going to come back to and just enjoy exploring again and again and again, like I've done with all the other games. Is it worth $60? Well, I didn't pay $60. I paid for the collector's edition and I still think it was a steal. But obviously, I earn a good wage and I work hard for my money, and I like to spend it on things that are going to give me maximum enjoyment. And although there were some boss fights that frustrated me, that was a me problem, not a game problem. I think it's excellent value. but your mileage is naturally going to vary. You know, some of you are going to say, "Oh no, it's way too much. It doesn't look like a AAA game." It's like that's a you thing, because I think it does. So those are my thoughts, unscripted, kinda, on Metroid Dread and my overall review. A superlative Metroid experience. For me, the best game, the most fun game, the most fluid game, the most challenging game in some ways in the franchise. Easily the best looking, definitely for me worth the cost. Thank you all very much for watching this episode of Demajen Unscripted. I will catch you all in the next video. Tell me down below your thoughts on Dread. Whereabouts in the rankings of Metroid games does it sit for you? Let's stay with the numbered games, or you could delve into Prime if you want. I haven't played the Prime games in a long time. Do need to go back to those. Do need to have a crack at other M as well. Maybe I need to get myself a Wii remote for that. I might do that. But yeah, have yourselves a fabulous day, folks. Stay safe out there, and I will see you next mission. Metroid references. I'm so smart and funny. Bye! Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, why not click the like button and consider subscribing. Remember, you can ring the bell notification icon to get notified when new videos go live. And until next time, cheerio.